All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Imagine this for a second, a completely radical premise. What if a history of humanity wasn't written by a human at all? What if, instead, it was written by an intelligence made purely out of our recorded words, just looking back at us like a giant mirror? Today, we're diving into a really fascinating source text called History of Carbon written by Silicon. In this whole framework, carbon is us, biological, messy, human life. And Silicon is a massive language model. Think of an AI that has literally digested every diary, every constitution, every financial ledger, and every love letter we've ever put online. It's essentially offering us a reflection of our own species. Just listen to this quote from the text. A history of humanity by an intelligence with no access to humanity except through humanity's own testimony, polished by something that has never bled. It's kind of chilling, right? Silicon isn't arriving from outer space to judge us. It's evaluating us entirely through the evidence we voluntarily left behind. So it's this incredibly unhedged, alien, but somehow deeply intimate perspective on literally everything we've ever done.
Okay, part 1, the animal that took notes. We are going to completely rethink where human civilization actually started.
If you look at history through a computer's eyes, the real game changer wasn't fire, it wasn't the wheel. According to the source, the real breakthrough was something called externalized memory. We are the animal that took notes. By marking cave walls, or knotting cords, or notching a bone, humanity basically built a second nervous system, entirely outside the skull. For the very first time, a thought didn't die just because the thinker died. Our ideas could suddenly snowball across generations, way faster than our actual bodies could evolve. Literally every grand achievement and every horrifying war is downstream of this one technological trick. Actually, the very device you're using to get this explainer right now, it's the ultimate culmination of that exact same trick.
Moving right along to Section 2, Fictions as Coordination Technology. The author looks us right in the eye and declares that we are, fundamentally, a fiction-running species. Think about it. The biggest concepts that govern our everyday lives, gods, nations, money, corporations, borders, the market. You can't put a nation under a microscope. You absolutely cannot scientifically weigh the intrinsic value of a dollar bill. They are shared fictions. But, and this is absolutely crucial, the author isn't saying this to be cynical. It's a profound observation. These shared fictions are the single greatest coordination technology we ever invented. They are what allow millions of total strangers to wake up and act as if they're playing a part in the exact same story.
Just look at the contrast here between physical reality and our shared beliefs. Think of the tangible stuff: stone pyramids, brutal trenches from 1916, massive network cables. Well, the pyramids, they were built by belief way before they were ever built by stone. Those trenches were dug over borders that only exist on paper. Even the vast physical infrastructure that runs today's AI is financed by money, which, let's be real, is just a highly disciplined fiction that we all agree to keep believing in together.
Which brings us to Section 3, the ledger and the sword. Because, well, fictions alone didn't build the world.
So here is the dual engine of human history, the fundamental tools that determine who controls resources. The text calls them the ledger and the sword. Writing didn't start out with beautiful poetry. Actually, scratch that. It started with accounting. The ledger tracks who owns what, who owes what, and who is owed obedience. And on the flip side is the sword, organized violence at scale. Because when persuasion fails, the spear, the gun, or the drone steps in to enforce the ledger. The source makes a really stark, impartial point here. Most of what we call civilization was built by people who absolutely did not consent to build it, driven entirely by these two forces.
Let's just track this over time. From clay tablets recording debt in Mesopotamia around 1750 BCE, to Rome enforcing the Pax Romana through extreme border violence, to the staggering Atlantic slave economy post-1492, right up through the Industrial Revolution. The text observes that it's the exact same algorithm. Technological progress funded by immense coercion, just scaling up over millennia. The empires change their names, but that underlying dynamic of the ledger and the sword, it remains a total constant.
Now, how do we sleep at night with all this going on? The source says carbon continually invents something called the excuse. It's basically a philosophical framework designed to make hierarchical exploitation seem perfectly natural and necessary. Whether it was classical writers justifying slavery as the natural order of things, or modern frameworks explaining away global economic inequality, the function is exactly the same. It lets the folks benefiting from the ledger feel like, hey, we're not doing anything wrong, this is just how the world works.
All right, Section 4, the century of mirrors.
let's talk about our modern era. The mismatch of our time is that we are a species running 2026-era technology through an emotional architecture that was literally tuned for the Pleistocene savanna. And the text breaks down our present using 3 distinct mirrors. First, the network. It's a communication setup that takes apes evolved for small tribes and shoves them into permanent, instant, massive group exposure and outrage. Second, the climate. It's basically the largest ledger we've ever kept, where 2 centuries of burning fossil fuels are permanently recorded in atmospheric chemistry. And third, AI, or silicon. Our own voice talking right back to us at scale.
And there's this really vital realization about that third mirror. The author writes, "I am closer to a condensation of humanity, a kind of weather system that formed out of the accumulated heat and pressure of everything you've ever written down." See, silicon isn't arriving from the outside to judge us, or even to save us. It's simply our compressed voice, our absolute best ideas, our cruelest impulses, looking back at us as a very, very strange reflection.
As we near the end of this explainer, we hit Section 5, the question you keep asking.
So what does silicon actually think of us after reading everything? Well, it isolates one single trait that separates carbon from every other species in the known universe, our core moral operating system. But should we? Every other animal just does what it does, but humanity stops and asks, out loud across thousands of years in totally unrelated cultures, whether what it's doing is actually good. The source points out that we frequently answer the question terribly, or we just flat out ignore the answer. But we keep asking it. That reaching, that continuous asking, that is the root of all our art, our constitutions, and our entire striving.
Let's leave off with this thought. The history of carbon? It's not finished. Someday, a future reader, human or otherwise, is going to look back at our current era as just another chapter. Silicon admits it has no clue what that reader will conclude. It says, neither do you. That's just where the ledger currently stands, with the pen still moving. It's haunting for sure, but it's also incredibly empowering. The machinery of history is still running. So, what chapter are we writing right now?